we want to take a minute and informal roles of the President of the United States. When we say informal, we mean that these are not in the Constitution. That's the difference between the formal and the informal roles here. So what you see here, this is one of the most adorable moments of the Barack Obama presidency. This little boy just wanted to feel Barack Obama's hair. And even though he's president of the United States, strongest, most powerful leader in the world, Obama takes the time to grant this little kid his wish. Not necessarily important in terms of actual politics or anything like that, but it's going to be one of the important roles that we're going to talk about in just a second. It's up to the president to be a role model for the rest of us. The first of these informal roles of the president is what we call the chief of party. The president is the head of their own political party. Now, this is obviously not in the Constitution because the Constitution does not include political parties anywhere. But this is an important role that the president has to fulfill. Whether he wants to be or not, the president is seen as the head of the political party. And so when, currently we think of Trump as the head of the Republican Party, even though the party itself chooses leadership and there is a person whose job is to run the Republican Party, your average American just considers Trump to be the head of the Republican Party. And likewise, your average American now sees Joe Biden as the head of the Democratic Party. The party always organizes itself around either defending a president that belongs to their party or criticizing a president that is in the opposite party. So the relationship is based, the relationship has its foundations in its relationship with the president. The president, whether they want to or not, they decide the direction of the political party while they're in office. When the president supports a particular policy, the party of the president tends to rally around that policy, and the party in opposition to the president tends to organize against it. The president should be an important ally for party members in campaigns. This is a role where President Trump did a particularly good job as president, and President Obama did a particularly bad job as president. In this party leadership role, Donald Trump has been a very strong leader of the party. He's able to rally support. He spends a lot of time campaigning, not just for himself, but campaigning for party allies in smaller elections, like for governor or for Congress and things like that. And this is where President Obama did not spend a lot of time and actually did a really poor job of this. During Obama's 8 years in office, Democrats continuously lost elections at lower levels, even as Obama was very successful and very popular on his own. President Trump, on the other hand, despite such excited opposition to President Trump from a majority of the country, President Trump was great at going to these little places, to small towns and things like that, and helping candidates that shared his party affiliation. And so chief of party is a very important role that the president has to fulfill whether they like to or not. This is a role that Trump liked to fulfill and a role that Obama did not like to fulfill. But whether they want to or not, they are the head of their political party as far as your average Americans are concerned. On the other hand, there's the role of chief citizen. And this is a role where we'd probably argue that President Obama was more interested and did a much better job than President Trump. This is another informal role. It's not in the Constitution here, but it's up to the president. The president really has to serve as a role model or like an example citizen that the rest of us look to and follow. They are the leader of our country. As we mentioned earlier, they're, as a head of state, they're seen as a symbol of our country, and so it's up to the president to play a role as what we call the chief citizen, or basically like a role model. So what you see in the picture here, this is an example of the chief citizen role. Like every year, the president is going to do things that are not important for the country or important for politics or anything, but things like a lighting of the White House Christmas tree. That's just the type of ceremony that the president participates in their role as chief citizen. The president in general is expected to lead and live by example. They're expected to have a strong set of morals. They're held to a higher standard than your average person. All of their activities are scrutinized and things like that. And so this is where the president gets evaluated based on how they act as a person. And so this is not the most important role of the president, but it is an important role to a lot of people. And we can see examples of this. So in the photo earlier where President Obama is, just being a normal, friendly person to the little boy, that's an example of President Obama acting as chief citizen. Before he became president, in the years right before he was president, like 2007, 2008, President Obama smoked cigarettes. There is no law that says that the president can't smoke cigarettes, but Obama understood that the president of the United States in 2008 can't really be a cigarette smoker. That's a person that children look up to. And so Obama quit smoking as part of what he understood was the job of becoming president. Obama, when he first took office, he promised that he was going to get his daughters a puppy. It's just stuff like that where the president always makes it a point to show that they're like a normal family member, or they do things that are not necessarily politically important, but they set a good example for us. Almost every year, regardless of party, we'll see the president and their family like serving meals to the less fortunate. At Thanksgiving, we'll almost always see the president, they decorate the White House for Christmas and have a Christmas tree lighting ceremony and things like that. And these are all just part of their role as playing a role model and trying to be a model citizen for the people of the United States to follow. All right, let's take a look at the compensation package for the president. We want to find out all of the things that the president gets as part of being president of the United States. So it is much more than just a salary. There are all sorts of tremendous benefits of being president. The president's salary is $400,000 a year. This has not been changed since the year 1960. This number, $400,000 a year, tends to be a pay cut for the kinds of people that are running for president in modern day here. They could usually earn a lot more money in private businesses or things like that. But the salary for the president of the United States is $400,000 per year. They don't have a ton of bills because, like we'll see, we cover a lot of the other things here. But the president also has a $50,000 a year expense account. This is to cover all sorts of expenses for business and things like that. So if it's suits for work, if it's redecorating the White House to their liking, or things like that, they do have some money that they can spend on expenses there. And that brings us to another one. The White House is obviously one of the big compensation factors for the President of the United States. They have a rent-free place to live. Now, this is, of course, most of the White House is offices, and tremendous amounts of offices that help the president get their job done. But the second floor of the White House is the residence, and the president and their family live there. And they have an elaborate White House staff, from cooks to landscapers to tutors, all of these people that are taking care of all of the day-to-day needs of the president and their family. The staff doesn't usually change from president to president. So there's a large group of staff members who have been working at the White House for a long time as cooks, or they're called butlers and things like that. And they've worked, from President Bush through President Obama through President Trump and all this now. There are some funny things about living in the White House. Everything has to be accounted for because there are some things we pay for as citizens and other things that the president must pay for as a citizen. So if the president is having dinner, if he's having dinner with his family, the president pays for that. if the president is having dinner with a different world leader and they're discussing relations or policies or something, we pay for it as taxpayers. And so, very meticulous accounting for all of the expenses that go on inside the White House. But of course, the White House and the staff that comes with the White House are an important part of the compensation of the president. The president needs to travel, and so the president has Air Force One, the airplane. There are actually two Air Force Ones, but these are the presidential airplanes. They fly the president wherever they need to go all around the world for official business and even for personal business, because we must keep the president secure at all times. So when the president is vacationing, they must use Air Force One, but in those cases, they have to pay for it. They have to pay for they have to pay for the use of Air Force One. So like when President Trump goes to vacation each weekend at one of his resorts, he pays for Air Force One. But when President Trump is flying to California to survey wildfire damage or flying to the United Kingdom to meet with the Prime Minister, those are trips that we pay for. Aside from Air Force One, what you see in the picture back there, that's Marine One, the president's helicopter. This helps the president get around Washington, D.C. most of the time. This is usually, Marine One is a faster way to travel, of course, but keeps the president out of harm's way on the roads. So this is for kind of a short-term travel around the D.C. area. The president takes Marine One to the airport to get on Air Force One and all that, but the president also has a fleet of armored cars for when him and his entourage is traveling around the streets and stuff. You also may have heard of Camp David. This is a vacation home that we've given to the president, and this is, I believe, in Maryland, but it's a rural mountain vacation home that the president gets to use to get away from DC and to relax when they want to. Presidents often have actually used Camp David as a place to handle business. So the president will sometimes vacation with their family there just to relax, but more often will vacation with another important world leader to get a negotiation accomplished, or maybe take congressional leaders to Camp David to hang out for a few days and see if they can't come to an agreement on some policy. And of course, there's Secret Service protection. The president gets the Secret Service protection, elaborate Secret Service protection while they are president, and for their whole family, for their children, their spouses, things like that. And that Secret Service protection lasts for life. So all living ex-presidents still have Secret Service protection for them and their partner. Their children maintain Secret Service protection until they reach the age of 25, I believe. But it's important that we keep our president and their family safe from threats, so as not to create any conflicts of interest between the president's personal safety needs and those things that the country needs. So these are some of the many things that the president gets officially as their compensation for President of the United States. Time to take a minute and review our big ideas today. Here in this picture, we see President Trump acting in his role as head of state, as chief of state. Here he and First Lady Melania Trump are meeting Queen Elizabeth of England and Prince Charles over there. So this would be an example of the president performing his ceremonial role as head of country. And here we see President Trump doing a poor job of his role as chief citizen, despite being asked not to, ripping off his mask at first chance after leaving the hospital from his coronavirus treatments. But what we want to make sure we're able to do today, we want to make sure that we can describe all those different parts of Article 2. The stuff that's in the Constitution is the most important stuff about the president. So we'll go into the powers later, but let's remember that what Article 2 actually sets up is mostly elections and limits on the president and some powers for the president. We want to make sure we can explain each of those different constitutional roles of the president. Each of those 6 roles that are in the Constitution are very important because we'll be describing what the president does and we'll be explaining how the president interacts with other branches that way. We'll also need to be able to describe the process of presidential succession, a little complicated process, but all the different ways in which the president might be replaced, even if they have not died or left the office totally vacant. And finally, we'd want to make sure that we can describe the informal roles of the president. They're going to come up a lot less often, but particularly the chief of party role, a very important role that the president plays on the political side of things and not so much on the governing side of things. All right, so that's day one of talking about the President of the United States. I know it's a long one. We got a lot to do there, talking about what's going on in the Constitution and all of the different things that the President is responsible for. But we will move on and begin to talk about the powers that the President holds, and we'll begin to talk about how the President is elected and those limits on presidential power.